KD was traded from Brooklyn to Phoenix, of course, earlier this month, but has not played a game since early January. The Suns are, at the moment, fourth in the Western Conference, but according to Caesars, they have the second best odds to win the title this season. Only the Celtics have better odds than Phoenix, and of course, they're in the Eastern Conference. Brian Windhorst is in Charlotte for KD's debut tonight and is with me now. Windy, the excitement is understandable, but this is also KD's first game in almost 2 months. What are the expectations for him tonight?
Well, what are the public expectations that the Suns are saying? No big deal. Long-term process. It's going to be rough at the start. What are the private expectations? They're extraordinarily excited. They definitely want to keep the attention low right now. They're especially seeing the issues that Kyrie is having coming into Dallas. They don't want to make any promises. But the truth, Max, is they have had a quasi-training camp to get ready for Kevin Durant's debut. They've only played 2 games in the last 13 days. Over the All-Star break, Durant was in the gym every single day working out with Devin Booker. Just in the last few days, they've had 2 very intense practices where they've gone over dozens of late-game situations to prepare for the real thing. They've even been here in Charlotte for 3 days to have several days of workouts. This was strategically planned for Durant to come back now against this team. So they are going to be ready. And here's the other thing, Max. Durant comes back from injury very well. He's had a number of rough injuries in his career. He's had this sprained MCL twice. Last year he missed 20 games. First game back with the Nets at that time, 31 points. Now, I don't think he's going to score that many tonight because he's on a minutes restriction, but I expect him to hit the ground running, and the Suns don't want to talk about it, but they're very much excited to see it all come together.
And given his easy scoring and his excellent defense, and the fact that he doesn't even need the ball, really. Like, he just scores in the flow of the game. I expect him to be very effective in terms of making the Suns better right away. But it leads to the question, given his entire package as a player, Windy, which is one of the best we've ever seen, he's only won the championships in a ready-baked situation, a team that had just won 73 games and came a possession away from beating the Cavs the year before, a team that won the championship before KD got there and after he left. What would, especially after what just happened in Brooklyn, winning a championship in Phoenix mean for his legacy?
With all due respect, I completely reject that line of thinking. I don't think he needs to prove anything to anybody. I am going to sit here and tell you the Warriors do not win the 2017 championship without Kevin Durant. That Cavs team was loaded. I've been saying it now for 6 years. I don't know why people don't give that team more respect. They went through the East at 12-1. Kyrie and LeBron were at full power. Durant was the MVP of the finals. They won that finals because of Kevin Durant. This sitting in the back of the bus and everything like that, it doesn't make sense to me. Having said that, I am in the minority. Most people believe, especially after the failure in Brooklyn, that he does need to come and do something here. Let me just say, it's not all about this season. Again, the difference from the situation in Dallas, where Kyrie is under contract for a couple more months, Durant is under contract for 3 more years. They're going to be formidable, but they're also the Suns are going to be formidable, but they're also going to need to rebuild this roster a little bit, and they're going to need a transaction cycle to do so. So I think that they're going to have a shot at it this year if everybody stays healthy and things fall their way. But I also don't think that it's win or bust this year for Durant's legacy or for this particular Suns team.
I agree. I agree with that second point, but I want to go back at you about the original KD point. maybe the officials disagree.
I'm sorry, Max, your time is up.
That's right, exactly. Look, yes, KD was the best player on a championship team, and they needed something extra to get over the Cavs, who were a dominant team and had beaten them the year before. But, Windy, that doesn't change the fact that they destroyed the Cavs with KD. That when you parachute KD onto a 73-win team, that is more or less a match for the Cavs, even if you think slightly less. It is not a level playing field where anyone else really has a chance. And that you prove something different when you win without that, when you just win on a kind of garden variety powerhouse team like the Phoenix Suns. They made the finals, they lost, they haven't won a championship, they didn't just win 73 games. You think there's no difference? He has nothing else to prove?
Well, let me tell you who agrees with you. Kevin Durant agrees with you, because if he didn't, he wouldn't have tried to put the super team together in Brooklyn, and then as soon as it fully fell apart, did he not immediately exit stage left to a new team that he handpicked and a new partner that he handpicked in Devin Booker. It's not lost on me the irony of where I am right now. It was here in this building about 50 feet from me during the 2019 All-Star game, where Kevin Durant, by his own admission later on, solidified his decision to come play with Kyrie Irving. He was at that All-Star game. They decided to play together the next year. They later settled on Brooklyn. And here we are, his first game now with this new, partner that he has basically picked, and that's Devin Booker. And he's hoping that that one works out a little bit better. But he is making those moves because he feels the pressure that you are talking about.
The great Brian Windhorst, ladies and gentlemen. This just in, according to ESPN sources, there's optimism. Golden State's Steph Curry will return sometime on next week's 3-game road trip, which begins Sunday versus the Lakers. The Warriors play the Thunder on Tuesday and Grizzlies on Thursday. Steph's been out since suffering the injury on February 4th. LeBron will miss at least 2 weeks and was spotted on the bench wearing a walking boot during last night's loss. Los Angeles is sitting just outside the West play-in tournament. Won't get much easier for the Lakers over the next 10 days. They have a less than 50% chance to win 3 of their next 5 games, according to ESPN Analytics. The silver lining is that after tonight in Oklahoma City, they head home for 5 straight games in LA. LeBron's former teammate and NBA champ, Richard Jefferson, is with me now. RJ, AD is not playing tonight because of a foot injury. First, what are your thoughts on AD missing a critical game for Los Angeles?
Well, look, if he's injured, then he's injured. There's not much to do it. I will, talk about, my thoughts on his availability, his dependability, right? Like the idea of having 2 superstars on your team is not only can you stagger them in your lineup and keep one on the court at a time. And that was part of the reason why they went to go get Russell Westbrook, is because they knew LeBron James was getting older. They didn't really feel like they can count on Anthony Davis's durability, so they tried to go get a 3rd superstar. It didn't fit. We know how that went. But ultimately, the idea is if LeBron James is going to miss a couple of weeks, he should be able to count on, what was a former top 5 talent when he showed up. To be a top 5 talent, to be a top 10 talent. And so his availability, Anthony Davis, and he had an outstanding game last night. His numbers were just, 28, 19, 5 blocks. Like, look, his numbers were there. And then if it's just not consistently there, then it's not going to have the impact it should.
The numbers were there, but the question is, were those empty calorie numbers? Of course, he needs someone to get him the ball, and D'Lo also wasn't playing. I want to give you a take on what's going on with the Lakers, and I'm curious as to your reaction, RJ. I was in LA doing Afternoon Drive with Marcellus Wiley on ESPN Radio when Kobe was there, and basically staged a behind-the-scenes mutiny because he didn't like D'Antoni's offense, and they were not going to make the playoffs in spite of getting Dwight Howard and Steve Nash to go with Kobe and Powell. And Kobe is playing himself 40, 45 minutes a game. And I said at the time, wait a minute, given his age and miles, we're heading toward a catastrophic injury here. You got to taper back. I even told Kobe that at the time. He's not trying to hear it because he willed the Lakers into the playoffs. But the cost was really the rest of his career. His Achilles went, right? I thought the same thing and has been saying the same thing about LeBron on this show, given his age and number of miles, RJ, and his usage rate. We are in uncharted waters. We've never seen a guy like LeBron do this late in his career. Wait a minute, we could be heading for a catastrophic injury. Now, he said, we saw it as it happened, I heard a pop. Like, people who think he's going to be back in 2 weeks, that seems unlikely to me. But then again, RJ, if they think this is nothing like an Achilles, maybe he got off light. Maybe the Lakers, he can still be LeBron, and going forward with LeBron and AD and a revamped supporting cast and more resources next year, they can still make a run. What do you think? Is this in a weird way like a blessing in disguise, like the kind of injury that could have been a lot worse?
Well, yeah. My brain doesn't go worst case scenario a lot of times, especially with any of an athlete's injury. You go to best case. That's just my brain. But to go back to your Kobe point, I was playing for the Golden State Warriors when he hurt his Achilles. And if you go back and look at the prior 2 or 3 games, he was logging 48 minutes. Now, don't get me some load management. That's not what it was. It was just more of like you needed to balance. You go back and look at Tim Duncan at the end of his career, how he was managed. with the talent around him, with the structure around him. That's why when we were talking about this poorly constructed roster, it wasn't just a lack of shooting. It wasn't this. It's like, no, you have one of the older, greatest players that we have ever seen. Can you do what it takes to keep him fresh, keep him healthy? When you're asking him, especially last year when he almost won the scoring title, the only games that they were winning is when he was going for 40 and going for 50 and having to overexert himself. And then you come into this season with the exact same. Now, Rob Pelinka did a great job. I was critical of Rob Pelinka at the beginning of the year. He did a very good job around the All-Star break and around the trade deadline of getting a quality team. But it was almost too late. Now a little injury here. Now a sprained ankle by D'Angelo Russell. So this year is not this year was never going to be, anything salvageable. So I just think that the Lakers, they did avoid a major injury, but ultimately all of the miles from the beginning of the season and even last season are starting to add up.
Looks like this season ain't the year, but it always looked that way. But as long as LeBron gets out of the woods and he's okay going forward, he's still basically LeBron. Lakers look like they could be set up if things go right with health for next year. That is the great Richard Jefferson. Kendrick Perkins won a championship with Boston back in 2008 and is with me now. Big Perk, the Celtics are the favorite to win the NBA title, but Milwaukee Bucks are on a winning streak. They're the only team out of the East recently to win a championship. They added Jay Crowder. Have they passed Boston in your eyes as favorites in the East?
They have, Max. And look, it's not just because of the additions of Jay Crowder and even Joe Ingles starting to look healthy, but to me, it comes down to the trust of Giannis Antetokounmpo and what he's been doing and how he's been playing. Right, when we talk about pure dominance and doing it at a consistent high level, that's Giannis. And then when I look at Brook Lopez, how he's been balling out of control. Just that tandem in itself on the defensive side of things is a problem. Drew Holiday has elevated his game. They're so good at this point that Chris Middleton might be accepting the role of a six-man coming in off the bench, and the Bucks are going to be perfectly fine with that. And also, let me add this. Bobby Portis is averaging 14 and 10 off the bench right now, and I know he's just coming back off an injury, but this is for the season. They have depth. They're really good. If they get home court, I got them winning against the Celtics in a 7-game series. And right now they do.
Yeah, I agree with you, Perk. During this winning streak, they
have not
looked that great during this winning streak at times. They played a Celtics team down, Tatum and Brown and Smart, and they barely won. So they haven't even really found their groove, but they're winning. And that's with Middleton in and out of the lineup, and that's before Jay Crowder, right? Now, if they put it all together, as you said, it often comes down among evenly matched teams, who's got the best player on either team. That appears to be Giannis. But it leads to the question, how much pressure is on Jason Tatum? I can't think of anyone outside of Jokic in the NBA with more pressure to put their team over the top this year. Do you agree?
I do agree, and it comes from his performance in last year's finals, right? And he talked about the moments that he had in the offseason and how he didn't get it done. And I think he's embracing the moment of having the pressure. And look, we already know, living in Boston and being around this fan base and this franchise, it comes with pressure. And so I think he's ready for the moment. Guess what? He has enough soldiers with him, for as Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, Derek White, Al Horford, and Robert Williams, to go to war with him every single night. So he should embrace that pressure. But absolutely, outside of Jokic, he should be the guy with the most pressure.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.